Let the thunder roar. Welcome to Raw Talk. 2 links down below as always. I actually had a bit of a hard time finding the text results for this week's Raw, as well as the video recap from them. So I actually had to Google it manually, and then I found it on WWE's official YouTube channel. So there you have it. Let's just get into this week's Raw. So Gunther started off with an in-ring promo talking about how Finn Balor made a huge mistake getting involved into his business and all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, like typical fashion, the Judgment Day come out with Finn saying that Gunther gave a shot to Dom for the title last week and he didn't deserve it. And I'm just like, again, we're really planting the seed that is going to sow destruction in the future between Finn and Dom. Something is absolutely going to happen, and the beauty is I don't know how it's all going to play out. On one hand, could it be that Dom turns face someday, or is it Finn? If I had to quickly pick, I think it would be Dom somehow. Everybody seems to be behind Finn when it comes to like JD and Carlito and stuff like that, and even Liv, of course. It seems like Finn's going to get pushed out. I don't know. Maybe I'm just talking out of my ass. Finn says to Gunther, Saturday night main event, he's going to win the title. He said, before I was the reason you kept the title, this time I'm going to be the reason why you lose it to me. Gunther says he lost respect for Finn because Finn's always looking for shortcuts and stuff like that. And that goes back to that thing that I've mentioned multiple times when it comes to Gunther. He's got a great work ethic, right? He's not somebody that looks for shortcuts. Where was Ludwig Kaiser? He wasn't even out at ringside to help Gunther. Gunther handled his own shit. And that is absolutely what I love about him. And then, of course, Judgment Day goes to swarm Gunther, in which then Damian Priest comes out, right? And I like that. What I thought was dumb was when Gunther, and maybe I get it a little bit, decides to attack Damian Priest. And it's just like an all-out brawl. I really thought it was kind of whatever. Backstage, the Judgment Day with Adam Pearce, and then Saturday night main event. Adam Pearce announces, guess what, Finn? You like chaos? Oh, there's going to be chaos because it's not just going to be your ass and Gunther in your world championship match. Damian Priest is going to be in there. Oh boy. And next week, JD and Finn are going to defend their tag titles against the War Raiders. And the Judgment Day is banned at ringside. Now this I had a lot of fun with. I love seeing the Wyatt Six. I love seeing Paul Ellering. You have to understand, for me, when I think of Paul Ellering, I think of like the good old days when he was managing the Legion of Doom. The Road Warriors, that they were also known as. So there's a lot of nostalgia there. Plus, I just love, with a passion, I love Final Testament and The Miz. I love The Miz. And the Wyatt Six. Just that whole thing. From day one that the Wyatt Six had come back, and then the whole Final Testament thing, I was like, I don't know how it's going to happen. They have to get together and feud. And here it is. And so I got that. And of course, when Miz is in the ring now, he's playing that, oh my God, right? And he's all like running out of the ring and stuff like that. And it was really wild, but eventually Paul Ellering, as you could see through the powder and how he's face, and then Karrion Kross picked up the victory. This was really, really nice. Now, before we get into this here, Jackie Redmond interviewed CM Punk backstage. Won't talk about the details with Paul Heyman, of course. Punk was confused about Seth Rollins. He says, you know what? I actually don't even hate Seth Rollins. He's just, no offense, not on my mind. Whatever, he doesn't have the title. He's moving on to bigger, better things. But he's confused about why Seth has so much hate for him still, which he later explains in an in-ring promo. Punk actually trained Seth Rollins for free. So that was like pretty wild. But then we'll get into that later because, like I said, Seth Rollins ends up going into the ring after. So Dakota Kai versus Liv. I almost said Liv Taylor. Liv Morgan. That toss from Morgan, right, where Dakota landed outside, that had me worried because she's had knee issues in the past. She's had two injuries recently. So she seems to be, with all due respect, injury prone. And like I said last week, I have to admit, I used to think she was just kind of like, whatever. No, she's good. Much better than I expected. No offense. Like, really. So this was actually really good. I was like, wow, she actually belongs in there. I don't know if this was for the title. I don't think it was. It was just obviously because of the story between Damage Control and, I almost said Judgment Control, and Judgment Day, right? But of course, Pure Fusion Collective get involved. There had to be something to kind of ruin it. And then through distractions, Oblivion leads Liv Morgan to pinning Dakota Kai. Drew McIntyre has a vignette promo. Again, somewhere along at the top, you can see all of that. Basically talking about why he attacked Sammy. He's the one that attacked Jey Uso backstage. And basically anybody who supports Punk, supports Roman, that's it. He's coming out after them. And then Seth Rollins came out in ring for a promo, mainly about CM Punk. Admits that Punk helped him get into the business, trained him, and said that when Punk left 11 years ago, what really chapped Seth Rollins' ass was A, Punk ghosted Seth Rollins, and everybody else in WWE needed to distance himself, which I actually can understand. I can't relate to it, but I can understand. Then Punk obviously goes to AEW, as we know, for a little bit, and all these years he was taking shots at WWE. Well, he was pissed off, and I think he rightfully so. Again, I get it. This is scripted, okay? How much of what Seth Rollins said does he actually feel in real life? I don't know. I'm not playing that game. I just know that I could kind of see where Seth is coming from, but I see more where CM Punk is coming from. So that's basically where all that hate stems from. That's why Seth calls CM Punk a fraud. Oh yeah, he hates WWE. He ghosts all of us, and then he just comes back and what, everything's fine all of a sudden? Yeah, it's because he got paid a decent amount of money. So there you go. And then Sami... Oh, almost forgot. Sami Zayn comes out and says, look, man, I don't know what's going on, but this whole thing with you and Punk is getting the best of you because now you're starting to act like Drew McIntyre where you blame everybody else but yourself. And eventually it just leads to the two of them saying, you know what, I'm sorry, that I assumed you attacked Jay. I didn't know it was Drew. And are we good? And he says they're good. Then Drew, speaking of the devil, Drew McIntyre comes out, clobbers Sammy, and the weak-ass officials, again, have to mount on top of him like a mountain and try to drag Drew away. Zelina Vega versus Ivy Niles versus... Not bullshit, versus Lyra Valkyria. Oh, yeah, that's where this was from. Saturday night main event will have Drew versus Sammy, by the way. Sammy did announce that before getting attacked. All right, moving on to the Zelina Vega thing with Ivy Niles. Dakota Kai, don't forget, now is in that tournament for the Women's Intercontinental Championship and who's going to be crowned the first one. This was a nice match. Again, I mentioned this, and I know I sound like a hater, but truthfully, I don't give a shit. Between the three of them, even though technically on paper I should like Zelina Vega more, I thought Ivy Niles and Lyra Valkyria were more of the highlight of that match. For me, and I've said this before, and I think I've been fairly consistent, there is something I can't quite explain other than there's too many moments that I can pick when I'm analyzing a match and I'm watching up close where Zelina Vega almost just seems off. Awkward is the way I put it. I'm not saying she's not good. I'm not saying I could do a better job. That's not what I'm saying. But if I compare her with the other competitors in the ring, straight up, we could have just tossed Zelina out and just had Lyra Valkyria versus Ivy Niles, quite frankly. So, okay? And I know next to nothing about Lyra Valkyria. from before, right? Because don't forget, I do not watch NXT. I don't really watch AEW. Like, had she been there or anybody else that's ever been there, like I look into it a little bit, but I'm pretty laser focused on WWE, and the only reason for that is time restrictions. I have other channels I do. I play guitar, I work out, I hike every day. Good for me, right? So that's the only reason. It's not because I have no interest in it. There's only 24 hours in a day. And I only sleep about 4.5, 5 hours a night, so I'm not going to cut my sleep even more just so I can squeeze in an extra 20, 30 minutes of wrestling from another promotion to really be in on what's going on. Once in a while, I'll do it. But no, this is my main jam. And like I said, I got a lot more emotional investment in Zelina Vega, which is why I said on paper, technically, she should be the one because she's with LWO. I love LWO. I love Rey Mysterio to death. Like, you have no effing idea. I love that whole stable, LWO. Lyra Valkyria, I have zero emotional attachment to her. I barely know her from a hole in the ground. But to me, that's the star. And, and by the way, she did win, so there's that, right? Backstage, Kathy Kelly with the New Day refused to answer the question, so of why they humiliated Big E. It helps if I could speak properly. So they come out to the ring, and all I could think about is Dominic Mysterio. And those boos were loud throughout the night. They've been walking around backstage, right, going, "Hey, how's it going?" And nobody wants to associate with them. Well, can you blame them? Couple of jackasses, right? I mean, who does that? That whole storyline, in one way, was genius, but at the same time was very bizarre. Because generally, Kofi is such a kind, compassionate person. And all of a sudden, he just goes rogue on Biggie. I see it more from Xavier Woods because that one felt more organic, right? Because it just started. The seeds were, again, sowed by Karrion Kross way back in the day, and then slowly starting to turn. I don't like this out of the blue stuff, but hey, whatever. It is what it is. I'm not saying I could have written a better script there for that event. So that happened, and they basically never got a word in, and they left. So I feel like it was filler just to kind of fill in the very little time that they have. It was very, very weird. And then we end off the night with a bang. Rhea Ripley defeating Raquel Rodriguez in an Anything Goes match. And of course, Liv Morgan had to come and get involved. And if you look really close at Liv, her and Dom, what is it with them chewing? Is it the same gum? Is she chewing Dominic Mysterio's gum? That is disgusting. That could be dangerous. But yeah, this was actually pretty good. I think Raquel Rodriguez held her own. She did fine, and I think it was her first match since she's been back, right? Like on a one-on-one, and it ended up as well when Liv came into the mix. That Io Sky came into the mix. She's got so much hair. We could just take a little bit here, and we could give myself some. But honestly, I'm good with no hair. As a matter of fact, I wish I would go more bald, not just like in blotches. I can make fun of it. I'm allowed to because, okay, it's my goddamn head. I've had people say, it's not funny, the people that suffer from alopecia. I was like, actually, if you think about it, it is kind of fucking funny. Because imagine how some people get to keep their hair, and then I started shaving my head when, this is like way off topic. I'm allowed to do this. We're at the end. Rhea, Riptide, through the table. Rhea won, by the way. Okay, so now I could talk about me for a moment. And so I had some people before, because I make some comments about hair and shit. Clearly, I don't give a shit. And sometimes I don't shave for like a day or two, and you could see where the hairs grow in. Oh man, it's all over if you came up close and the light wasn't shining. It like goes bald in patches. It's like, you have to admit, that's kind of funny. It's kind of funny. I always say the joke that God's got a sick, twisted sense of humor, because you can either keep your hair, you can either go bald and look like Dr. Phil, and my real name is Phil, but I'm not a doctor. And you have that typical where you get to keep your hair on the side, and then the band at the top, the typical male bald pattern. This is what happens with ADHD and OCD. Your brain just goes like way off into left field, right field, top field, bottom field, back field. Mine just decides to go so I look like a fucking burn victim. Or like someone that suffered like an acid spill or some shit. I just don't give a fuck. So once in a while I'll make like a a little comment on it, and if you're offended, well, it's not about you. I actually fucking suffer from that shit. So yeah, so what I was saying, this is not entertaining, is I started shaving my head way before I started going bald. And when I started to go in some spots, it actually started off as two little dots right where the devil's horns would be. I'll never forget it. The lady comes with the mirror behind my head. I was like, oh yeah, look at my hair. I was so vain with my hair. And I saw the two little dime-sized, like perfectly, like symmetrically, like right perfect. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And it was just a tiny little thing. You couldn't even really tell unless you looked for it. And then from that day forth, that was like in my super early 20s, like 2021. I was like, you know what? Fuck it. Zzz. Never looked back. Never, ever looked back. And then as the years go on, sometimes, like I said, I go to shave and then there's just spots where you can just see like blotches where hair just can't grow. And I'm like, bitch, can I just bald properly? You know what I mean? Because I like this look. I just don't like having to work for it. So if I could just get the whole thing gone, that would be perfectly fine with me. So this is what happens. Like I said, once in a while, I go a little off topic, but that's actually kind of rare when I do the recaps. And if I do go off script, I try to save it for the end. I try to get the most important information out of the way first, and then I'll just talk about whatever. Thumbs up, as always, if you did like the video. Otherwise, what was I going to say? I'm so like spaced out right now. Thumbs up if you like the video, because it does greatly help support the channel with the algorithm and trying to make me more relevant in the search results. I'm getting distracted by the gum there. If you didn't like the video, go ahead, give it a thumbs down. I'll bend it in half, twist it, break it off in your ass with that gum, and you don't know where else that gum's been. Like I said, I think that's the gum Dom was chewing earlier. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, I mean, naturally, that would be great. But if not, thanks for stopping by anyways. Take care, and maybe, if I'm lucky, Halloween's over, eh, Seth? Maybe I'll see some of you in the next one. Bye for now.